what I'd like to do is that I've done a lot of research since I knew that this was coming in. And probably 90% of the people who live in Banning are sitting here wondering, how did this come about? Yeah. How did it happen? Because most people don't even know. And I prepared I guess it's more of a speech because I didn't want to leave anything out. So I'm going to read a little bit of history, and I'm going to take you back in time a little bit. So most of the voters of Banning have little or no idea that on Tuesday, July the 12th, 2005, the City Council indebted Banning with over $110 million of debt for the next 30 years. You may say this cannot be true, but it is. It's true. Over $110 million were borrowed in 2005 and 2006 via several bond issues. This was voted on by current Councilmember Art Welch, who apparently thought that he and other council members, not the voters of Banning, should make the decision to borrow this unprecedented sum of money. The City of Banning needs to pay over $6 million per year just for the interest on the debt for at least another 18 years. By law, voters must approve any new indebtedness or taxation. But in this case, your elected officials ingeniously found a way around it. It was done basically by creating a shell game. In particular, they created the Banning Utility Authority. Now keep in mind that we had almost a debt-free utility at the time. The authority would lease the entire utility system, both water and power, from the City of Banning for 30 years. Using the income stream from the utility system, the authority then issued the bonds. The money taken in by the utility authority from selling those bonds was then transferred to the city under the disguise of lease payments. It was subsequently used for anything you can think of, including redevelopment grants and a new $13 million police station. The latter was part of an openly written into the water bond. However, under the California Supreme Court has ruled that this type of use is illegal and the water utility debt cannot be diverted to purposes other than water. The use of this water bond for a police station violates Proposition 218. The truth about the bond issue is buried in over 1,000 pages of public documents. However, the bond prospectus issued by the Banning Utility Authority gives the reader a good idea of what was done, in particular on page 7. And here's a brief description of the usage of the water bond from the prospectus, verbatim. Plan of finance, water bonds. On or after closing date, the proceeds from the sale of the water bonds will be applied as follows. Water Bond Project Fund. A portion of the proceeds of the water bonds will be deposited to the Water Project Fund for use as follows. The amount of $17 million will be transferred as an initial upfront lease payment to the city under the water lease. What I said, they will lease it and pay the city lease payments. Said amount will be used to finance certain public capital improvements, including but not limited to the following. A, construction of a new 2-story police facility anticipated to consist of approximately 41,306 square feet of space and 53 secure parking spaces. B, completion of a public swimming pool anticipated to have a bather capacity of 254 people to be located within Repavere Park and to be owned and operated by the city. C, construction of a one-stop permitting center consisting of the rehabilitation and retrofit of an existing city-owned structure to construct new office space and meeting rooms to house the city's development-related function. D, construction of a concrete, open-air, lighted public skating park with a skating surface anticipated to be approximately 10,000 square feet, which is to be owned by the city. And E, upgrading and replacement of certain air conditioning units at City Hall. I didn't hear any recycled water or anything else. Today, the $110 million have been spent or have been appropriated. The money is essentially gone, and the taxpayers of Banning are left with the tab to pay the interest and repay the debt over the next 18 years. Now you know the real reason behind Banning's constant utility rate increases. The city can only kick the can so far down the road because it's now time to pay the piper. So we leave 2005 and moving forward to the year 2008 and the council meeting held on June 24th. Now, for the June 24th meeting, this is the minutes from the June 24th, 2008, and I'll be giving these to Marie tonight. They'll be entered into the agenda for next week. Pick up the agenda next week and you can read all this material. Minutes from that city council meeting show that Banning's finance director issued a clear warning to the council that the city's water utility will incur a $20 million shortfall in years to come should the council decide to build the new police facility using water bond proceeds. Director of Finance warned the council, don't do it. The record clearly indicates that the entire council ignored the warning. They unanimously voted to spend the money anyway. It's on page 15 of this document. Bonnie Johnson, finance director, said the funds that were earmarked for this project came from a bond issue that was issued in 2005. Mind you, in 2005, it was earmarked. It wasn't spent. Art earmarked it, but it wasn't spent. Money was appropriated, could have been changed any time, but it was earmarked. In 2005, and there was two series of bond issues, and one was for water and one for wastewater. Out of the wastewater bonds, under the structure of the bonds, the Banning Utility Authority was formed, but out of the water side of these bonds, out of these proceeds, $17 million was allocated to the city in the form of a lease payment under the Banning Utility Authority structure, and that $17 million can be used for any capital project of public benefit, and at the time the council went through and prioritized the $17 million, and at that time the $14 million of the $17 million was earmarked for the police station. Since that time, the water department has reassessed some of its capital needs, and there's going to be challenges as we move forward to put in needed infrastructures in the time frame that the utility director feels that those infrastructures should be put in to facilitate developments. Specifically, during this session, the record shows that Councilmember Debbie Franklin asked whether or not spending the money on the police station would create a fiscal problem for the water utility. The answer given by Finance Director Bonnie Johnson was clear yes, page 15. Finance Director Bonnie Johnson said, to quote, that she could take a guess because she doesn't have the list of the projects in front of her, but she believes it is in excess of $20 million over the next 5 to 7 years that we are going to need that we currently don't have in reserves and don't have as part of the bond proceeds. The water department has to complete improvements that are needed to the system. Franklin correctly concluded, she did. We are in a tough position tonight because we know we are short about $20 million, but we are taking water money to build a police station, page 16. Franklin further stated that it was a big disappointment to council to find out that we don't have the money that we need for the water department afterwards, on page 26. Yet, despite clearly realizing that the water utility did not have the money, Franklin proceeded to vote in favor of building the police station anyway. Again, that was on June 24th, 2008, page 27. Today, Councilmember Franklin denies responsibility for her decision. She now falsely claims that the decision to build the police station was not hers and that there was no way to change that decision without costing the city a great deal of money. Now, she said that in a August 20th, 2010 letter to the editor, 2 years after she voted to approve the spending. However, the official record identifies Franklin's claim as complete fabrication. Nowhere in the minutes can one find any discussion about the potential cost of not building the police station. This issue was never discussed by anyone, including Franklin. And it was Franklin who, according to the record, voted to spend the money on the police station along with the rest of the council. Franklin now is less than truthful about her role in that unprecedented disaster. Furthermore, it was Bob Botts who made the motion to spend the water bond money on the police station in 2008. The record shows that Botts knew the money was not there, but he spent it anyway on page 26. Today, Botts raves about the police station as being one of his greatest accomplishments. He even cited it as an example of progress in his ballot statement for his 2010 re-election campaign. However, unlike Botts, the citizens of Banning have long come to realize that rather than progress, the police station is yet another example of the council's fiscal mismanagement, the likes of which the city of Banning has never experienced in its history. The official record makes it clear that no later than June 24, 2008, in the city council meeting, Botts learned of the $20 million shortfall from Finance Director Bonnie Johnson. During the same June 24, 2008 session, Banning resident Helen Barnes warned the city council, and to quote her, "If we take the $12 million from the water utility, who is to say next year or a year down the road we have to raise the water rates to our members of the community, which they truly cannot afford?" She went on to say that the city council and our staff should be able to come up with a better alternative than to take the money from the water utility. These are from the minutes on page 21. And as it turns out, Mrs. Barnes had it exactly right. But Bob Botts brushed this off by saying they, the finance director, will find the money. And that quote can be found also on page 26. This indicates that Botts clearly knew that the money was not there. Needless to say, nobody ever found any money, and without concern that the money was actually there, Botts moved for approval of the spending. In 2008, all 5 city council members, Botts, Franklin, Salas, Hannah, Machezik, voted in favor of spending water bond proceeds on the police station, and without comment from the city attorney, who at the time was Julie Biggs. This caused an unmitigated fiscal disaster for the city that the citizens of Banning will have to pay with big increases in water rates, which we are looking at today. And finally, we're going to move to 2017. By now, the previous city councils has spent all of the Prop 218 water bond money on a police station, City Hall air conditioning upgrades, City Hall office renovations, and other projects, all unrelated to water and water infrastructure. But what about the much talked about and needed purple pipe? What happened to the promise to provide Sun Lakes with recycled water? Was this a fraud and another purple pipe dream? For years, the Banning City Council has been promising Sun Lakes residents to provide them with much needed reclaimed or recycled water for their golf course. The proposal only makes sense. Sun Lakes waste massive amounts of precious drinking water to keep its golf course green. This is not only ecologically irresponsible, but also extremely expensive, particularly in these hard economic times. Many residents have to struggle to come up with the money necessary to pay the Sun Lakes Association fees, which due to the use of drinking water continue to go up and not down. Let's take a look back. The promised recycled water project, known to all of us, the Purple Pipe, was to be financed by the $37 million water bond in July of 2005. But after the bond was floated and the money was received, the project was no longer talked about. Now, more than 12 years later, the city is forced to admit that all of the money is gone, as the previous city councils squandered it on a new police station and other non-related water projects. Before I ask our Public Works Director to explain the Purple Pipe fraud to the people, I would like to inform the public again about Prop 218. Proposition 218 requires a vote by the people for any diversion of funds from a water bond to any purpose other than water-related expenditures. Prop 218 was put into place in 1996 and for a reason. It was implemented in order for the people to control taxation and to ensure that water-related utility fees and indebtedness were not used for things that have no relation to water. People were sick and tired of being charged higher and higher utility rates without the money going to the utility operations themselves. With that said, what Prop 218 was aiming to stop is exactly the kind of abuse that has been occurring in Banning. The previous city councils used the water bond proceeds to build the police station and other projects. For all intents and purposes, the money used for all the non-water related projects was stolen from the taxpayer. While the water bond was placed and spent under the previous city council, there are still 2 city council members remaining in office today that are responsible for the violation of 218. Those members are Art Welch and Debbie Franklin.